Photo Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Grace Costa, a commercial photographer of over 2 decades, a photo-based artist and a photography mentor. This podcast opens up a secret diary about the world of the photography industry. We'll bring you inspiring interviews with industry professionals, as well as stories and tips to help you propel through your photography journey, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro. Thanks for joining me today. Now let's open the latest diary. Hi friends, thanks for being on the podcast today. We've got a special guest with us. She's a content marketing coach, podcaster, and founder of Shall We Social. Her name is Krishla, and Krishla is a content marketing coach based in Melbourne for service providers, coaches, and course creators who want to attract dream clients online with kick-ass content. She's got over 15 years experience in social media marketing, and her signature moves are systems and shortcuts so you can create content faster than a speeding algorithm, kindly butt kicking to get you taking messy action and ditch the overthinking, and stacking the dishwasher with precision of a Tetris world champion on a caffeine high. Well, that super move I need help with because I always get in trouble about the way I stack my dishwasher. So we are super excited to have Krishla on the podcast today, learning from her all about social media. Hi, Krishla. Welcome to the Photo Diaries podcast. So good to have you here. I can't wait to hang out with you today and talk all things social media.
So thank you so much for having me, Grace. This has been a long time coming, I think. Like, we've been Insta buddies for ages. So It's so nice to actually meet you sort of in real life. It's like real life, but over a screen. Sort of semi in real life.
Exactly. Well, we're going to talk about social media today, specifically starting with Instagram. You are an awesome content coach and you help people in all sorts of ways regarding their business. So we're talking about photographers today and creatives, basically. And if photographers on Instagram, most of us are in the 2025, are we wasting our time on Instagram? Because to me, it feels like the engagement's super low. People are hardly commenting. We get a few likes here and there. It just feels like, are we wasting our time showing up every day? What's your thoughts?
Wow. No, you're not wasting your time, I promise you. But Instagram has changed a lot since like the glory days of 2016 or 2018 or even 2020. There has been a real shift in people's behavior online. And unfortunately, as business owners, as creatives, as people putting content out there rather than just consuming content, we feel it. We feel that change a lot more than somebody who's just jumping on to scroll. And like you said, it's because we are seeing that dip in views, the drop in engagement, and all of that. Now, there are a number of reasons why that's going on, and I'll touch on a few of those, but I really want to help you and your listeners to reframe the way that you're looking at this so that you don't feel disheartened, because we all get that little dopamine surge when we get our likes and our reach and all of that good stuff. This is why people are so obsessed with going viral, because of that nice big dopamine hit you get of having all of those views. And, that's lovely. We really like that. But as business owners, that's not actually what we're aiming for. We're not trying to go viral. We don't necessarily need heaps of views or all this engagement in order to make sales and to attract clients with our content. So as I said, there's a few reasons why this change is happening. One of the big reasons, I believe, is just scroller fatigue. People are tired and they are not actively engaging anymore like they used to. And think about your own behavior, right? When you jump on Instagram now, for example, at nighttime and you're having a scroll through, how many times are you stopping to comment or even liking a post? Even if you've sat there and like read it all or you've watched the entire video, quite often we're just consuming passively being lurkers in the background,
Mm.
essentially, and not actively engaging. And our audience is doing the same. It doesn't mean that they're not seeing your content. It doesn't mean that they're not thinking about you and your content, but they may not be actively engaging. And I know that's really tough for us on the receiving end of that because we don't know that our content is resonating if people aren't engaging with it.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
that's what's hard, and it doesn't give us the encouragement we need to show up again and again.
yeah. And so you have to really be willing to keep showing up, even if you can't see the visible results of that work. And there's a few ways, obviously, you want to make sure you've got your strategy in place as well as part of this, and we'll talk about that shortly. But I think we really have to consider the lurkers out there. Every time I launch a product, or product, I say, in inverted commas, a service, a program, I will have people signing up that I have literally never heard of. And they'll say things like, I've been following you for years and I've been watching all your content. I'm like, what? You've never once engaged. I've never received a DM or a comment or anything. So your clients or potential clients are there. They're watching, they're lurking, or they're coming to you, they're discovering you, binging all of your content and then signing up without even maybe following you, or liking a single post. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a strange situation to be in because you feel like you're shouting into the void. But I promise that there are people out there listening, the lurkers. So, yeah, hands up for the lurkers. And this is the thing, we have to get over those vanity metrics, and just be willing to keep showing up. Yeah, even though we can't sort of see those results yet. Another thing that we really need to consider in terms of social media behavior and how people are using social media these days is that social media, Instagram, TikTok especially, are used a lot for search these days. So 40% of Gen Z would rather go to TikTok and search than go to Google. It's the same for millennials now on Instagram. They tend to go to Instagram more than TikTok to go search for things. I do this myself as a Xennial. Um, if I want to go to a restaurant in Melbourne, I'm not going to go Google restaurants in Melbourne because what am I going to receive in the search results? I'm going to receive people who have paid for Google AdWords appearing at the top, right? If I go onto TikTok or if I go onto Instagram Reels and I search for Melbourne restaurant, I can see videos from the restaurants themselves, from the people who have gone there. It's a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot more visceral, like the experience. I can see videos, I can see the food, I can get a feel for the vibe and the experience that I'm going to receive when I go to that restaurant. And so people are using social media a lot for search. And again, that's kind of passive behavior in terms of that. I mean, they're being active in terms of the way they're searching, but they're not going and liking your content or commenting. They're using the tool to research and to find the products or services that they need. So, in terms of your photographers, if people are going, okay, I want a photographer in Canberra, right? They're going to type that in and start searching. And if they find you, Grace, they're going to be like, oh, okay, and come over and binge your content and decide, okay, well, do I want to explore this further? Am I going to click through to her website? And they might do all of this without liking, engaging, or following you. So if we can think about that, and instead of focusing on the external kind of measures of success, the likes or and the follows and comments, shares, all of that stuff, right? Which we've kind of been trained to like little Pavlovian dogs, I should say. Instead of focusing on that, let's focus on showing up because we can control that, and also making our content really searchable so that when people are using the platforms in this new way, we're more likely to be discovered. And I think that's going to be a lot more valuable for people than getting hung up on likes and chasing followers.
Okay, that sounds good to me. But how do we make our content more searchable? Is it through the captions and using search terms in the captions or something else?
Yes, so that's one part of it. So there are different areas of your content that social media platforms will draw on to determine what your content is about. So we're all familiar with the hashtag, right?
Yeah.
Hashtags are used for indexing your content or categorizing it. Yeah. But these days, social media platforms are relying less on hashtags, basically because people have abused them and they put in hashtags on all these unrelated terms. I'm sure
Right.
you've seen this before,
Yes.
stuffing in all these hashtags. Hands up, I used to do that myself. That used to be the strategy, that used to be what we did. These days, what we really want to do with our content is make it super, super clear what this content is actually about. And we do that, yes, through the hashtags that we select. So we want to be using hashtags that are related to the content of the post. Yeah. So that these algorithms can go, okay, yes, this is a post about wedding photography services, then this person is in Canberra, for example. And we want to make that really, really specific in the hashtags that we choose. We also want to make that specific in our Instagram profile and in your bio. So, in terms of the keywords that you're using in there, the way that you're describing your services, the location that you're putting on your profile itself.
Mhm.
And of course, within the content, if you are, say, presenting to camera, the words you are saying in your
Really?
videos, yeah, the
Wow.
text that you have on screen in your videos, it all adds up. There's a number of different algorithms that work this out. The alt text on your photos, like all of these things
Hmm.
build a picture of who you are, what you do, and who you serve. And if you can keep that consistent and really hone in, okay, what are the keywords and messages that I want to get across with my content and say that over and over again, then Instagram, TikTok, whatever platform you're on, is going to learn, okay, this is Grace. She's a photographer based in Canberra. She works with these kinds of people. This is the type of work that she does.
Hmm.
And so they will then serve your content to people who have previously engaged with accounts like yours or have shown an interest in content like yours. And so then you're more likely to attract the right people to your account.
Okay. In that instance, then, for photographers, what I see commonly is they're mostly posting images of client shoots. And what if they can't even think of search terms in relation to a client shoot? And aside from that, not just the search stuff, but what else can photographers be sharing on their feed that isn't just client stuff?
Yeah. Look, and we love those photo dumps. They're amazing. The best thing I think for photographers is you have incredible content. You are creating incredible content. So you're already a step above other business owners in that sense that you have like limitless photos basically that you can use for social media. Now, as we know, Instagram's no longer just a photo sharing platform.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean that you have to do video 100% of the time. You can obviously leverage those images that you have, but you can share them in different ways. And I think this is where people, they need a bit of inspiration, they need some ideas.
Yes.
First of all, I would say for the photographers, go and look at what other businesses are doing who are not inside your niche.
Hmm.
Yeah, because we don't want to be copying other photographers because then all of our content is very same. It dilutes your brand and you're not standing out because it's a competitive field, right? There's a lot of people who offer photography services.
Mm.
So aside from your work speaking for you, how else can you stand out? So, looking at, first of all, and this is again, it comes back to having a content strategy, understanding who it is that you want to work with, who your niche is, and getting really specific on that, which is going to help you determine those keywords and search terms.
Hmm.
Yes, right. If you are a wedding photographer, then you're going to talk about weddings and all the things that go along with that in your content.
Yes.
If you are a brand photographer, you're not talking about weddings, right? Like
You're talking
that's,
about business.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So coming back to, okay, what's my niche? What do I want to be known for? I think that's the easiest way to answer that niche question. What do I want to be known for? When someone thinks Grace Costa, what are they thinking? And I want you to list out what you want people to think.
Mm-hmm.
And then you use a little bit of inception and make them think that through your content by talking about those things time and time and time and time and time and time again until you are sick of talking about it. Because
Oh.
as we know, with algorithms, with people being busy, with the fact that there are 2 billion active users on Instagram, not everyone is seeing your content all the time, right?
Mm.
Very few people are seeing your content. So you do need to be really repetitive. You need to nail down your key messages, the things that people need to know, understand, and believe in order to move from where they are right now to where they want to be. And the way to get there, obviously, is through your product or service. That's like that bridge from point A to point B. And I'm giving a really basic top level explanation here of this because we don't have time to go into all of that today. But if you think about it like that, okay, where is your customer or client right now? Where do they want to be? How do you get them there? How specifically do you do that? Those are your key messages.
Mm.
Those are the things you're going to talk about time and time and time again. So, going back to, okay, what can we do with all of those beautiful client photos that you have?
Yeah.
Yes, you can simply share like an album. Okay, here's the wedding that I shot last weekend, and you can share that album. Beautiful. Another way that you can do this is through storytelling. Now, you can either do the storytelling with the images themselves, and or I would say and because every piece of content can be made into multiple formats.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps your photographer is doing a talking head reel, telling the story about that wedding or that couple or the unique venue or the way that they did something completely unexpected for their first dance or what have you. And you can have those images up behind you. You can use the green screen effect, which just quietly seems to perform quite well, at least at the moment, at the time of recording. So you're having some of those images come up behind you as you are telling the story is really engaging. I really like this type of video as well because you've got a talking head video, but you've also got like a slideshow. So it's kind of two
Mm.
pieces of content in one. And you can take yourself, you can pinch and you can squeeze yourself and you can move yourself around the screen. People like to watch that. It's kind of engaging. You're not super big. The focus isn't on you. So, especially if you're a little bit shy, that can be a nice way to get into your talking head videos.
Mm.
You can also take some of the B-roll footage that probably every photographer is now capturing some behind the scenes while you're there.
Yep.
You can put text over that with some of those key
Yes.
messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's then talking to the potential customers or clients about how you help them, what they need to know, understand, and believe before they'll take that next step to work with you. So there's lots of different ways of presenting your content for different stages of the customer journey. So that attraction content that's going to get people to stop scrolling, that could be some of the wow parts of like the event maybe that you've been filming or the wedding or just the fun behind the scenes content if you're on a brand shoot, right? Some of the
Yes.
bloopers and silly moments. That's really great, like attention grabbing top of funnel content.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the consideration, the middle of funnel content. This is where you want people to get to know, like, and trust you because who do we buy from? People we
People.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where you're showing your expertise, you're telling the story. Perhaps you're explaining, here was the brief. This is what my clients really wanted. And for some reason it was difficult, right? So we're telling like the story. Okay, so here they were, here's your hero's journey, right? They encountered a difficulty, how we worked together to solve that, the end result, they were so happy, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, you can tell that in different ways. You can tell that through static images with text on them. You can tell that through a talking head video. You can tell that through one of those green screen videos we were just chatting about, through B-roll with text over top. Like there's so many different ways to tell those stories. And then you've got your bottom of funnel content. This is where you're offering your services and saying, hey, come buy from me.
Yeah.
And of course, that's where your portfolio really does come into play. People need to see, okay, here's the style of images I do. Or people think I'm only known. I've actually had a photographer client that I worked with at the end of last year, and we did a full content strategy for her. And she said, I'm worried that people think that I only do really bright, colorful content, because that's what a lot of my content is and a lot of who my clients are. But I can do the more minimalist, muted tones, like that kind of style of
Mhm.
photography as well. And so I'm like, well, this is what we need to get across then, to show examples of both kinds of work and to literally say, you don't have to be bright and colorful if that's not your vibe. Like, I'm going to capture who you are and tell your story through your content.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And also, another idea to add to that, which I've tried before, is when you either show a video or stills and it's on a reel and you record your voiceover on top.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
It's a good
And
idea for
again,
people who are
that's,
introverted.
yeah, I was just going to say that. Look at us thinking alike. Yeah, it's so true. It's a great way to ease into that talking on camera thing, is to start just with a voiceover. And just a point to make here, everybody hates their voice. So just don't let that put you off, right? I hate my voice. I hate my voice like on a podcast, on video, like everybody does. So if you record it and think, oh God, just
Just,
post it.
yeah,
Okay.
don't
Just post
re-listen to
it.
it. But I've
Yeah.
told you many times how much I love your voice. I love your accent. So, but
Isn't it
yes.
weird, right? Whereas I hate it and I think, oh, I think I'm like super nasally. But there you go. It doesn't matter really what your voice sounds like. It's about the value that you're bringing to your audience. And at the end of
Yes.
the day, we're not professional speakers, unless you are, but let's pretend we're talking to your photography crew. We're not professional speakers or paid actors. We don't need to get it right. Maybe not right. We don't need to get it perfect.
Mm,
We just need to show up and give it a go and show who we are so that people can connect and decide, okay, is this person the right person for me? Like, especially as a photographer, you really need to have that connection with your clients.
yeah.
It's quite an intimate
Intimate.
thing,
Mm,
you photographing somebody. And so they need to feel comfortable around you. And they can't feel comfortable if they've never even seen your face, if you're
yeah.
hiding behind your photography. I would not hire a photographer if I didn't know what they look like, if I'd never seen them,
Mm.
right? I just wouldn't. I would need to know them in some way. Yeah, which is a bit of tough love for the introverts, but
Yes. And
it's true.
especially our clients are spending multiple thousands of dollars. Photography is not a cheap service. So you want to build that trust factor. And it takes more than just images to build a trust factor. So, photographers, let's get into it. Let's find some ways to bring our personality out and help people trust us so that they can buy from us.
Yeah. And that, like you said before, that voiceover piece, that's actually a really great way to do that, because there'll be people who listen to people on radio or podcasts. Hello, here we are now. And they feel like they know us because they can hear our voice. Yeah. So it
Totally.
doesn't all have to be talking head video, because I know people get really hung up on that and they're very shy. Like you said, you can do that voiceover piece as well, and that will help to build that trust.
Perfect. Okay, so now let's shift from trust to and personality to engagement. How do we encourage our audience and our viewers to engage, even if it is just a comment? We would get so much A, validation from it, B, encouragement, and C, conversation, and start to build that trust with us as a service provider. How do we build engagement?
Yeah. Okay. So again, just remember our reframing from earlier. Okay. We have to just ditch this idea that when we put out content, people are going to engage with it. And it's not because our content isn't good enough or we're not good enough. It's just that that's the way people are. They're tired, they're inundated with content. So if you want more engagement, you need to post better content. Simple as that. Mic
Ouch.
drop. I know, I know. I say it with love. I say this with love. Look, it's just the way it is.
Mm,
The content that tends to get the really good engagement, right? And we're talking likes and comments and shares and saves, all of that good stuff. Maybe not so much saves. Let's talk about likes, comments, and shares, right?
mhm.
That type of content tends to be your top of funnel, attention grabbing, scroll stopping content. Yeah. I
Mm.
want you to think about when you're online. What's something if you see that you would hit and you would send that in a DM to your friend?
It's always funny videos. But if we feel like we can't create that type of content, what do we do?
Yeah, exactly. So that type of content is the type that tends to get the most engagement.
Mm.
Okay. So we have to stop obsessing about that because we are running a business. We're not a comedy channel. We're also not a paid creator. So paid creators have a very different strategy to businesses online. They get paid by the platform. So whether that's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, what have you, they get paid either directly by the platforms or they get paid by brands to create content for them. And so for them, yes, they need to go viral. They need to have as many views and like outward engagement as possible in order to make money. For us, we make money by clients leaving the platform and getting onto our own platform, so our own website, a sales call, whatever the next step is to work with you or buy from you. Yeah. In saying that, yes, we do want some engagement because that is going to help our account and our posts in general be pushed out to more people. We
Mhm.
don't want a completely dead account. Now, better quality content doesn't mean it has to be really cinematic and amazing and have all these cool jump shots and you like dancing and whatever, jumping off buildings and stuff. Yeah. Okay. We don't necessarily need that, but we need content that is going to stop the scroll, that is going to get people going, oh. And we can do that in a few different ways. And one thing I would really encourage everybody listening to do is to open up your phone, start scrolling through. I think Instagram Reels is a good place to start for this. And don't worry, even if you're not making Reels, you can apply it to your other forms of content. I want you to scroll, scroll, scroll. And as you do it, when you stop on a piece of content, ask yourself, okay, what was it that made me stop?
Mm.
Did they have a really strong verbal hook? Did they say something a little bit controversial or interesting? Like, what was it maybe that they said? Or was there some text on screen that caught your eye and you went, oh, what's that? I want to stop and I want to watch or listen to this. Or perhaps there was like a pattern disrupt in the way that they presented their video. So
Mm.
you would see this is they talk about the millennial pause in a video. Millennials, before they start recording, they do this big and then they speak, right? And Gen X gives them shit for that. But Gen Z gives them shit for that, I should say. But there's the Gen Z shake where they're holding the camera and it's a bit shaky. You can't see this, what I'm doing here on screen with Grace, but it's a bit wobbly and they like put you down, right? And talk to you. That is a visual pattern disrupt.
Mhm.
And they're doing that to grab your attention, but also because it feels like, when you FaceTime with your friends and you're
Yes.
like, I'll just put you over here while I do this thing.
Yeah.
That's what they're recreating with that style of video. Now you would have seen there's so many different ways to like do visual disrupts. And once you start scrolling and noticing these, you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I see what's happening here. I see what's happening here. Right.
Mm.
So what I want you to do, so first of all, let's scroll through and see, okay, what's made me stop? What's making me stop and want to watch more of this content? Yeah. Is it, and it's not necessarily anything super controversial or crazy, although it could be.
Mhm.
It may be that the person on screen is challenging a commonly held belief that you have, right? So I've got an example here that I shared the other day for a client who they are a DJ and photo booth hire company.
Mhm.
And they sort of had this hook that said, and this was one of their high performing reels that said, do you think a DJ just plays music? Think again. And so if you are in the space of planning an event or planning a wedding and you've been considering, do I get a DJ or do I just pull out my phone and get the Spotify playlist happening, right? Maybe you're tossing those up and you see that, you're going to stop and look and listen to that piece of content,
Mm.
right? So, what is it that's stopping you? What's making you want to continue on? And if you can analyze a few pieces of content, you will start to see patterns. And I guarantee you'll notice that whole pattern disrupt thing now next
Yes.
time you're on Instagram. And the reason you see it a lot is because it is effective. Yeah. But as I said, we don't need to go absolutely crazy. It can be just a small pattern disrupt like that. It can be some text on screen that we know is really going to speak to where your ideal customer or client is right now.
Mm,
So, is it something that they've been thinking about and you're challenging that belief? Is it a problem that they're currently experiencing and you've just named it right there on
mm.
screen and they're like, yes, that's me. Oh my
Maybe I've
gosh, I'm
seen.
struggling with this right now,
Yes, yes.
right? So it doesn't have to be super crazy to get people's attention. It
Mhm.
just has to be really directed to the person whose attention you want to grab. And
Mm,
so I would say spend some time doing that, and then you can apply those things to your own content. And that is going to help with that engagement. The other things you can do is create opportunities for engagement on your content. Now, I'm sure you would have heard this piece of advice before. Instagram stories. We love Instagram stories because they are really easy for people to engage with.
yes.
Instagram stories are almost exclusively seen by your current followers. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is where you can start talking about content that's a little bit further down that funnel. Yeah, we don't
Mm,
just have to get their attention, we've already got their attention, they're following us. So, this is where we can start getting into that conversation, into that nurturing content. And the best part about stories is that they have those engagement stickers. So, you've got the polls, you've got the question sticker, the ability to DM people really easily from your stories. And you'll be thinking, oh, yeah, I put up a poll the other day and nobody answered it. It happens to all of us. Don't stress. Okay. Again, we've got to be willing to keep showing up and posting content, even if we aren't getting the dopamine hit of
mm-hmm.
engagement. And okay, we put up a poll and nobody answered it. Why? Because it was a bit bland. You know, it was maybe the question wasn't hard hitting enough. Okay, let's try that again with a bit more of a meaty question or more specific answers that people can tap on. I think polls are
Mm,
really easy because it's like a little micro engagement. They don't have to write anything, like it's such an easy one. But it has to be something that people care about to
yes.
bother tapping on it. Yeah. So stories, great. That's one way to encourage engagement. Those controversial or conversational posts. Again, we don't want to be controversial for the sake of it. We're not going to pretend to be Andrew Tate anytime soon.
Mm,
Why would we want to, right? It's got to be relevant to your brand and to your audience as
mm-hmm.
well. And you don't want to be like turning people away because you're just being weird and controversial.
Yes.
But again, controversial can be challenging really commonly held beliefs and talking about how you do things differently against
Mm,
the status quo. It doesn't have to just be like, I hate left-handers, right? Like, it can be something that's actually relevant to your audience.
okay.
Finally, the one of the best ways I think to get engagement happening on your content, and I love that Instagram has this ability. TikTok has it too for those listening who have TikTok, is using audience-led content. And I know you've seen this, Grace. I did a whole little 20-minute training about audience-led content. Perhaps we can drop the link to
Yes.
that below in the show notes if anybody's interested. But basically, it's being led by the questions and comments that your audience are leaving on your content. You're like, Krishla, nobody's leaving questions and comments yet. I know. It's kind of like chicken and egg, like let's
Yes.
get it going, right? But what I want you to do is each time somebody comments on a post or a reel,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just replying back with a text-based response, you can film a reel in response to that. And it pulls through their little comment and it sticks it up on screen so people can see, oh, okay, this was a question that somebody asked. And you can respond and you can talk about some other things. Maybe if the question's a really quick answer, you can add a bit more detail or context or information, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It's just a good way to, one, give you your next content idea, but
Mm-hmm.
also it's going to encourage other people to ask questions and comment because they see that you are
Mm,
taking the time to respond to them. And it has this really nice effect of like building on that. Look, not every post you have is going to have comments or questions because it might be self-explanatory, but
yes.
there will be some that do. And if you can create this safe space where people feel really comfortable dropping their questions publicly and you
Mm,
answer them, that can be a really great way of boosting your engagement. If people aren't publicly commenting, but they're sliding into your DMs with questions. You, of course, can jump on and do a story and you can talk about that question. You don't have to identify them or
Mm.
name names.
Yes.
You would have seen, you're on my email list, aren't you, Grace? I have a content series that I'm doing at the moment. Every Friday, I send out an email. It's called Content SOS. And I take a question that people have asked in my Facebook group or on a post or they've DM'd me or what have you. And I answer it in quite a bit of detail and
Oh.
give some practical strategies and examples of things that people can be doing to improve their content. That is an example of audience led content, right? I'm just
Mm.
relying on their question, then I'm reacting to that and I'm offering a lot of value so that my email lists get, a whole lot of value because that's what you want. People have handed over their email address, so you want to show up and give them the goods. But that's a really good example of how you can use that content in multiple ways as well. So it doesn't just have to stay on Instagram. You can take that and use it elsewhere as well.
Yes, you could use it on LinkedIn as well. A lot of photographers are on LinkedIn. But that also, another version of that, say for instance, a photographer's not getting any comments in there to respond to, but they're getting questions over email when they're liaising with a client for the first time and a client is booking them for headshots or booking them for a branding shoot or an architecture shoot. They might be putting questions in that email saying, how long is it going to take? How do I dress? What do I wear? When do I receive the images? Whatever those sorts of questions are, that's still audience led, and we can create content around that kind of question.
Absolutely. And if you are getting a question more than once, you should be updating your FAQs as well,
Yes.
right? So that you can direct people to that if you are getting those questions all the time. And my guess is, Grace, I'm sure you get people going, what do I wear? Right? All
Yeah.
the time. You can take that and you could create like a freebie, a guide, maybe a short YouTube video that you direct potential customers or clients to that outlines all of that. And so that's a value add for your audience, but it's also a value add for your actual clients as well. So there's just so many ways that you can take this and use it to inspire your content on numerous platforms.
That's such a good tip because then that breaks us away from just sharing client images, which
Yes.
I have found in the past, especially before I transitioned to being a photography mentor, I was sharing a lot of imagery based on branding photography. And it wouldn't get much engagement because they're photos of other people and
Yeah.
there's no connection there really. So yeah, this is another thing.
Absolutely. And look, and if you want to take some of those tips, so say you were going to, and I'm going to make this up because I'm not a photographer, I would say what the tip is to wear like solid colors instead of patterns. Say
Yes.
that was your tip. You could then have I'm thinking like an Instagram carousel with multiple images.
Hmm.
You could have shots that you've taken at brand shoots of people wearing solid colors on various
Yes.
backgrounds and inside and outside and show how it really makes them pop, right? And you could add the text over top, or you could have the text and the written caption. Like there's just so many ways, again, to present the same idea. And I really recommend when you find an idea that people resonate with, that you present it in multiple ways.
Okay, so just hang on to one idea for say a month and be like, right, I'm going to try this idea in a carousel, in a reel, in a story, in static images, and just see what works. Test it out.
Yep. Plus, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Like there's
Yes.
different ways that you can filter it. You could filter it through different copywriting techniques. So like problem, agitate, solution. I know people don't always like that one. Or IDA, what is it? Attention, interest, whatever that acronym stands for. But there's so many different ways that you can present that one concept. Yeah. Like a longer form reel, like 90 seconds versus a short one with, a few things kind of popping up on screen, kind of the main headings versus a
Yes.
longer talking head one where you go into detail and explain those things, right? Series
Yes.
based content. Like there is literally just so many different ways you can take one idea and run with it. And
Mhm.
then you can see, okay, what are people responding to? okay, they all really liked this green screen style video. I'm going to try that again for a different idea and see if that lands as well.
Good. I'm already feeling inspired. This is very good.
Yay!
Very good. So I know my photographers will love this idea flow because you've really shared some things that I know a lot of us haven't thought about because I'm watching a lot of photographers in my circle, some of the women I mentor as well. They're all doing the same thing. And they're actually also a major problem they're having is they're not writing anything in the caption.
Mm.
Like,
Please write a caption.
no, they're
Hello,
just writing.
ChatGPT exists today. If nothing else, get ChatGPT to write your caption. That is not my official recommendation,
But
but
it does
you
help.
have to have something, again, if for nothing more than that SEO.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And you can take, if you have a talking head video, you can literally just use the transcript as your written caption, if you
Oh, that's
must.
true.
I would say at
Yes.
least rework it a little bit, pull out a couple of the key points. Where is your call to action? You want people engaging on your content?
Yeah.
Well, write that in the caption. What do you think about XYZ?
Mm.
Do you prefer like an inside or outside photo shoot? Whatever the post is about, like if you want people engaging, well, you have to put in a bit of effort from your end, yeah?
Yes.
Tough love Krishla comes out again, but
Yes.
that's you can't just chuck up a couple of photos and walk away and expect miracles. Not when there are 2 billion other people you are competing against for attention, for time, for content. It's not even just the people in your own niche that you're competing with,
Mm.
right? And that's on one platform.
Yes.
Yeah. We've also then got our attention split over at Netflix and in our emails and our children and everything else that's going on, right? The millions of bloody posts in the kids' sports WhatsApp group.
I haven't got there yet, so I don't know.
Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you. There's a WhatsApp group for every freaking thing. And so that is taking people's attention away.
Mm.
So if you want to just chuck up a couple of photos and walk away, fine, but don't complain that you don't have any engagement.
Mm. It's true. They're literally putting, I'm calling people out here, but they're literally just putting the location of the shoot or the couple's name or the weather. They talk about the weather in one sentence and that's it. So yeah,
Oh
time
my
to lift
gosh.
your caption game, friends. And
And especially
yeah.
if you're at an event, and
Yes.
I'm just, because I used to work in events prior to this, back in the olden days,
Ah.
BC, before children, I was an events manager for 10 years and I also did their social media, and that's how I ended up doing this. Um, but at events, especially, and I'm thinking like corporate events,
Yes.
weddings, what have you, there are a whole bunch of other vendors that you could be
Mm.
mentioning and pulling into your content, tagging them, telling the stories about what they did as well. And guess what? If I go to a venue, say I'm a photographer and I go, oh my gosh, this venue was amazing. And they had this incredible signature cocktail that, yes, I had a little sip of like while I was on duty. It had this and this and this, and you have a photo of it. And then you tag them in it. Guess what? They are going to share that.
Yes.
And then your photography is going to get in front of their clients who might be planning a similar event.
Mm.
Like it's that
It
easy.
is easy.
Plus, you're building your network of people that you can possibly collab with in terms of content. And that's a whole nother conversation, content collabs. But in doing that, that's going to also help you get that engagement, double your reach, depending on the size of each other's audiences.
Yes.
But it also cuts your content creation time in half if you then have these relationships and you can share each other's content. So I think we need to think bigger in terms of our content than just ourselves and what we feel comfortable with doing, because we're staying small by doing that.
Yes, I agree. Well said. Okay, final question. Possibly, maybe not, knowing us. How do we or should we be sharing our personal life?
Mm,
What's the feeling around? Yes, we want to build the know, like, and trust factor by getting to know us, not just through our static imagery. And now we're going to create more creative stuff that you've mentioned. But what parts of our own personality or our personal life could we share that helps people connect and get to know us a bit more?
yeah. First of all, I would say you don't have to share any of your personal life if you're not comfortable with that. You don't. You're a business, okay? We're not building, unless you're building out a personal brand, which photography is a little bit personal brand. But even then, it's your personal brand in terms of who you are as a photographer, as a business owner,
Mhm.
right? So it's not necessarily like who you are as a mum, right? Or who you are as a sister or an auntie or what have you, okay? So we don't necessarily have to share that. If you do want to share some personal content, I would first and foremost, and again, it always comes back to just having this underlying strategy and just this really clear understanding of how does this personal content help my audience? Yeah, how is it related to them? Because people only care about themselves, let's
Yeah,
be honest.
yeah,
Okay. So is telling this personal story, is it about me or is it about helping my audience? Perhaps in you telling that personal story, you are helping somebody make a mindset shift that is then going to get them to go, oh, okay, I actually do need to invest in brand photography for my business.
hmm,
Perhaps, and often as entrepreneurs, we were the person a few years ago that we are now trying to attract. So if that's the case, yeah, you can tell those past stories and be like, I used to be like this, I used to struggle with this, then
hmm,
I did this, blah, 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 right? And so you're naturally kind of moving them along in terms of their thoughts or their mindset with those stories and with that content. But just sharing random stuff about yourself, occasionally you might want to do it. You might want to pop in something really cool or crazy that you've seen, but that's not going to help your business as
hmm.
such. Yeah. And that's okay if you want to do it. Look, and I absolutely tanked my TikTok account by sharing some stuff. That was not related to marketing, and I attracted hundreds and hundreds of new followers. My post went viral, but it was for the wrong thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I don't mind, I would do it again. I was sharing some beliefs that I have
Hmm,
around something that was happening in the world at the time.
hmm.
Um, but as you can see, like my personal beliefs, it didn't do anything for my business. And in fact, it kind of ruined my TikTok for a little while there, and I had to just lay low and be a bit quiet. And then I
Hmm.
came back and carried on just sort of posting as usual.
Very interesting.
So I just think you don't, yeah, again, if you're creating enough good content, otherwise, unless those stories are relevant to your business or are relevant, yeah, to the mindset that people need to take that next step, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely against it. And, I might share something random that happens in my day on stories. I think stories are a great place to do that because then it's gone. It's not just sort of a permanent fixture on your feed.
Mm.
But I remember a few years ago, do you remember this, where people would get on stories and be like crying or ranting or just carrying on like absolute pork chops? I was like, I don't want to watch this scroll. Look, some people
Mhm.
might have been like invested in the drama and maybe they love that. And if that's the type of person you want to attract, cool. Um, but it just didn't seem necessary then. And I think even more so now that people are a lot more discerning with their attention. Yeah. And
Yes.
again, we want to get attention for the right reasons. So I would probably skip that. Yeah.
Yeah, you see people in the stories share more personal life stuff, and I feel like in the stories it's expected because it's kind of like, um, say the junk mail catalog, where it's full of variety, you know. One day you're going to get stuff you want to buy, the next day you're just going to want to chuck it out, and sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not. But I think the stories allows you to see inside someone's world in a way that the feed doesn't, and a way that
Mm.
their website doesn't, and maybe other things don't. So it could be an experiment,
Yeah, look, and that I
you
think
know.
that's the very best point here, Grace, is it is all a huge experiment content. And what works for my audience might not work for yours, and
Mm.
vice versa, right? Personally, if I don't want to share story like personal stuff, I won't. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't work for somebody else. And so there's no one. I was on a podcast the other day and I loved what she said. She said, I don't claim this to be truth with a capital T, right? Because this is what worked for me, but it's
Mhm.
not the only way to do things. And that's the thing with marketing. There's not one only way. Otherwise, we would all be rich and famous and going viral and making millions of dollars from every post that we put up. There's no one right way. And anyone who claims that there is just full of it, in my opinion. There's not. Maybe there's a
No.
way that works for them, but it doesn't work for everybody or for every audience. So if you want to do that and you put it out there and you get really great engagement, it might be a good way to hack that engagement
Yeah.
is to share some of those personal stories. Then by all means, do that.
Mm.
Rules are made to be broken, right? And I'm just thinking of the fact that this week I sent a personal email story. So I've
But
just broken
email's
my own rule
different.
there.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was via email, not on Instagram. So it was a bit different. But, this is the thing. If you find it's working for you, do more of that. I think we need
Mm.
to make more data-led decisions
Yes.
than just using our emotions or our fear to guide us with what we're doing content wise. Yeah. That's part of this whole business piece of using social media for business is to put on our big girl pants and to be like, okay, is this something I want to share? Is this something my audience actually wants to receive? And
Yeah.
then we can
Yes.
make
Good
that
question.
decision.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
your audience might want to receive that. They might want to see you doing some personal things because it can be really relatable. But relatable
Yes.
doesn't always make sales. So it's kind of again, it's about balancing your content, balancing the different stages of the customer journey, balancing the different purposes behind our content to grow our accounts and have all that nice engagement on a platform versus getting people off the platform and making sales versus
Yes.
positioning yourself as an authority and an expert and the person that they would choose for that particular purpose. And one piece of content probably isn't going to do all three of those
Well,
things, which
yeah.
is why we have a variety of content. Yeah.
Yes. And also a variety of channels too. And with email marketing, speaking of different channels as well, I feel like something that email marketing can give you that Instagram can't. Well, for me personally, I feel like I can't totally be 100% honest with a story or a thought on Instagram because it feels a lot more exposed. Whereas in my email marketing, a personal newsletter with a personal statement or something like a controversial thought, I feel so much more confident putting it in my newsletter because it's a closed group. It's not open slather on the internet. Of course, it's on the internet, but it's closed in a way. And I feel like the people in my mailing list are with me for a reason and they trust me. So then I trust them to hear what I think, honestly.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's just a thought.
absolutely. I would challenge you to take something like that from your email and just try it on social media. You
Oh,
will have to
yes.
be prepared depending on what it is. Sometimes you need a bit of a thick skin. Yeah. Um, because there are trolls. Like people will write the most unhinged stuff on social media and just think it's perfectly fine.
Mm,
So it depends on how much of that you're willing to take on.
yes.
Um, as I said, I've gone viral a couple of times on TikTok. Um, the first time it was in the evening, and it was just like every few minutes, like it was jumping up by tens of thousands of views. And I was like, oh
Wow.
God. And the comments, and then you know what it's like as you start to get beyond your own audience,
Mm,
in come the bloody men.
yes, because they don't know you.
The men,
Yeah.
always the men. And they start, right? And it just started getting, they start making threatening like comments and it
Horrible.
starts getting, and I was like, I just shut it down at that point. I'm like, all right. I said to the guy, I'm like, okay, and here we are, not all men, right? He's like, I'm not a man. I'm like, clearly. And then I was like, I'm taking this down because the post didn't matter to me that much. And I was
Mhm.
about to go to bed and I couldn't be bothered waking up to like heaps of comments from the US. So I was like,
Ah,
I'll
yes.
just I'll just turn this off. I honestly don't care. So you can try it and you can see how it goes.
That's true. You can always remove it.
But you can protect yourself as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're in charge of it. You can always remove it, right? I
Mm,
think so yeah, try it. But again, we want to be led by data. not emotions so much. And if
Mm.
you're not saying anything that's really controversial, you're probably going to be okay. You might have a few people disagree with you, and that's okay. People
Yeah.
can disagree. Our content is about repelling the wrong people as much as it is about attracting the right people.
Yes.
But it'll be interesting to see how that content goes in the wild for you. Yeah, I would say just try it
I
and
think,
see. But
yeah,
yeah,
I think it's a creative platform. Like all these social media and all this content creation is such a creative platform. And creativity, in some ways, means experimentation. It's not a set science. So if we look at our social media, in that way, as it's an experiment, be brave, try something new, try a new avenue, a new creative platform or whatever, and just play. Just don't take it so seriously and just play with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's kind of a numbers game. You got to put
Mm.
out
Yes, it is a
so
numbers
much
game.
content before something will pop off.
Yeah.
You might be lucky and it pops off right away and something goes viral. Cool.
Mm.
I shared actually in an email and in my Facebook group the other day, I shared the a screenshot of results from two of my posts. One of them, I think, had like 5 likes on it and it had reached like 185 people.
Mm-hmm.
That post got me a new client and made me $2.4 thousand. Not heaps, but hey, that's all
Yeah.
right for reaching only that many people. I
Mm-hmm.
had another post where I shared the stats that had reached 18,000 odd people,
Wow.
heaps of comments, heaps of shares. Like it was going off. Made nothing from that, right?
Interesting.
But I will still continue to do both types of content.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because one was about getting that attraction. That was a top of funnel piece of content. The
Mm.
other was bottom of funnel. And bottom of funnel content, content where you are actively selling. And we need to do that because we're business owners and we make money by selling. Yeah.
Yes.
That content doesn't tend to get great engagement. Instead, we want to measure the success of that content by
Mm-hmm.
the number of people who are going over to our profile, who are clicking those external links, who are sliding into our DMs with questions about the product, service, offer, whatever it is that you are talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, yeah, again, it's all that balancing act. And again, it always comes back. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but to having that strategy. And when you have that strategy and go, okay, I'm putting out this piece of content to try and attract some new followers. So I'm going to look at things like follows or comments or that, that those vanity metrics that we talk about. Is that content reaching more people who I don't normally talk to?
Mm-hmm.
If it is, cool, success. And I'm going to put out this piece of really blatant sales content. This is for the people who have been in my world for a while, who know, like, and trust me, who are ready to buy this particular thing. I'm not going to measure success in terms of likes and comments and stuff. I'm measuring them off of Instagram and in my bank account.
Mm.
Simple as that. And so when you have that understanding, you have that strategy, you're doing both types of content because they do different things, and another piece in the middle, of course, as well. But then you don't feel disheartened by the fact that, oh, this only reached 100 people. Oh, but this one got me a sale. Well, cool.
Yes.
So it's about
That's
having that
reality.
perspective and
Yeah.
not always using likes as your measure of success.
Yes. I wish that sometimes likes had just disappeared. It would be so much easier.
Have you frozen? Oh no,
I'm
you're
here.
okay. You just were really still there for a second.
I'm here. No, I wish that Instagram was a little bit different in that way that it didn't have likes. It didn't have that kind of vanity metrics so that we could just be a little bit more, I don't know, just be a bit more playful about it and not take it like a game, you know?
Yeah, I know. And it's really hard not to. And it's hard not to
It's
compare
hard.
yourself. I
Yes, very
promise
hard.
you, though, don't compare yourself to people online. There is a really big creator, and I called this out in one of my posts the other day, a really big creator who has made millions of dollars selling Instagram courses. And I read this person's post the other day and went, I've heard that before. And there's actually a video going viral over on TikTok that I had saved because I liked the way he did the hook in this
Mm-hmm.
video. So I was like, oh, I'm saving that. for inspiration. And I went, I've heard this before. And I went over and rewatched his video, word for word.
All right.
The same. Now, look, I haven't named and shamed because this person might be outsourcing to a social media agency who's done
Okay.
that. It might not be
Yes.
them personally who's copied and pasted, but it was
Right.
exactly the same.
Gee.
And I think the thing is, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
can't be comparing ourselves. It's just hurting our own feelings. Like, honestly, we are hurting our own feelings by comparing. We just need to compare to where we were
Hmm.
a month, 2 months, 6 months ago, but also really focusing on the things that we can control. And we touched on this earlier. You can control how often you show up online. You can control, um, your strategy and what you're going to put out there and what you're going to test and play with. You can control your feelings. You can, I promise. I say this for myself as much as anybody else. But when you get knocked down, right? You're not really. It's all just experimentation,
Mm.
okay? If your post flops, nobody's going to die.
No.
Okay. Like it's okay. We're safe. We just need to tell our nervous system that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's fine. We're safe. It's all a big experiment. And of course, the other thing to really remember, we have been focusing a lot on Instagram and social media. But this is where it comes back to having that full content ecosystem. And it's really important that we're
Mm.
not putting all of our eggs in the Instagram basket. I say this as somebody who's had their account disabled twice.
Whoa.
Yes. Ugh.
Gosh.
Through no fault of my own, just
Yes.
apparently an error, according to them. No reason provided. So that was my big canon event, as the young
Mhm.
people say, where I went, okay, I'm not focusing just on Instagram. And at
Mm.
the time that it first happened, I was launching an Instagram course.
Mm.
Okay. So trust me, I was invested in Instagram.
Yes.
But that's where we have to have these other marketing channels and to get people like over onto our email list and build up our owned channels, the
Yes.
things that we own, rather than constantly relying on social media, relying on it not only for our leads and our business, but also just for like our well-being and our
Mm.
sense of self. Because I don't know about you, but if you spend too much time on social media, you start feeling really crappy about yourself. You start comparing yourself. It's not a good thing. Yeah.
That's right.
So that would be my little like pep talk around that as well.
Well, that's a great way to end, Krishla, because you've given us so much valuable ideas, inspiration, new ways of reframing our mindset around this game that's social media and marketing. And yeah, I really value everything you shared with my audience because I think they will definitely take action on these things. And the tough love is exactly what we needed as well. So
Yeah,
thank
and
you so much.
taking action is the key. Pick
Yes.
one thing that I've said today and go try it
Yes.
today. Yeah, like today,
Today. That's
because
right.
that's where you get the results from. Okay, we can learn and learn and learn and learn. And I saw a creator speak about how learning is really just like professional procrastination. I was like, oh, you got me because hands up, I love me a course. I love learning. But it's true, you can spend all your time learning, and if you're not implementing, you are not actually one testing that it's going to work for you. Because
Mm.
again, just because it worked for them doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. But also, you're not getting the results if you're not actually taking that action. So, small actions really do add up.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. How can people follow you and work with you? I'm sure you'll probably help them make this amazing strategy that you speak of. Tell us how we can follow you and what things we can be part of.
Sure. So I've got a few ways that you can hang out with me, free and paid. I do have a free Facebook community. It is called the First Class Content Lounge. So you're welcome to come on in there, and that's where I do my Ask Me Anything post, which I then, use as my audience-led content, as we spoke about earlier. So I pop up that post every Tuesday and take a question. The Mad Marketing Mums podcast, that is a podcast that I ran with Clem from Honeybee Social. We don't run that podcast anymore, but there are 60 episodes there that you can go and binge on with lots of really great guests as well. So go and tune into that. I have been saying for a long time that I'm going to start another podcast myself. I just haven't got to it yet because, as you know, Grace, it's very time consuming
Yes, it is.
doing a podcast. And I'm working on a new program at the moment, which is all about taking action. So, learning, but also implementing those ideas. And so, that's something I'm working on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you'd like to know more about that, connect with me on social media at Shall We Social. Slide into my DMs. Let me know if you do need some help with your content strategy or with actually getting over yourself, stopping that overthinking and spiraling and actually taking action. Yeah, because that's what my new program, Content Copilot, is going to be all about.
Beautiful. Well, there's no excuses, photographers. There's plenty of things to help you along the way and be more successful out there in the marketing game. Well, Krishla, so lovely to see you, and I appreciate you joining us and everything you shared with us. And I will see you online.
Yes, absolutely. I'll see you on the gram.